So we are into module 6, that is Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, VPC. And VPC is is a service that lets you launch AWS resources in a logical isolated virtual network that you define. After you create VPC, you will be having the complete control over your virtual networking environment, including selection of your own IP address range. Not only IP address range, the creation of subnets and configuration of route tables and network gateways, all those things. We'll see what are all those things in the upcoming slide. You can use both IP version 4 and IP version 6 for most resources in your VPC. It helps to ensure secure and easy access to the resources and application. So VPC is a logical isolated virtual network. That's in a very simple term to tell. So what we are going to see in this module, VPC and networking. So we are into networking part, and VPC is the main part of it, and VPC patterns and limits and private and public subnets, elastic IP address and elastic network interfaces, security in the cloud. We'll see one by one. First, what is VPC? Again, VPC is a service will launch you to launch the AWS resources in a logical isolated virtual network that you define, and this is your private network space in the AWS cloud. With VPC, you can isolate your environment for your workloads. Within VPC, you can allow custom access controls and security settings for your resources. Okay. We'll see how they can be done. So Amazon VPC specifies. So VPC is a virtual network dedicated to your AWS account. If you have any AWS account, if you log into your AWS account, if you want to create your infrastructure, first thing you have to do is you have to create VPC. Within that VPC only you can start creating the resources. Okay. So VPC is the first thing you have to create, that is a virtual network dedicated to your AWS common. It's like if you are buying the plot land, first what you will do, you will build the compound, right? So you are what is the purpose of building a compound in your land? That means you are telling that this is my area to secure my place, right? So like that you have to build that VPC, create a VPC. You are building a compound for it. It requires IP version 4 and IP version 6 ranges. It enables you to create a specific CIDR range for your resources to occupy. And VPC provides strict access rules for inbound and outbound traffic. After you building the compound in your land, you will appoint someone in your place, some security or watchman, something, right? So you can tell them that who should allow, who should not allow. So that's why you are appointing that guy. So same way in VPC, you have the access to restrict the inbound and outbound traffic by creating the rules that we will see in the upcoming slides. Deploying a VPC, you can deploy VPC into one of the 21 AWS region. Any AWS region you can create, but when you start, first you have to select the region, and then you have to select the zone, and then you can start deploying the VPC. So that's the first thing. A VPC can host resources from any availability zone within its regions. Okay, so within the regions you can select the availability zone, and then you can start deploying the VPCs. If you ask me how many VPC we can create, yes, there is a limitation. Actually, you can create up to 5 VPCs, I guess, if I'm not wrong. I can check and let you know. But you can create. Okay, so so you can create how many VPC, that I'm not sure. I can check and as per my remember, I can tell that it is 5 VPCs, I guess. Okay, so you can create first you can create one VPC. It would be appropriate for your network, and it will be small If it is small single application managed by one person or very small team, then you can go for one VPC. And if it is workload with a high performance computing and identity management, all those things you are involving in this infrastructure, then you can go for single VPC. For most of the use cases, people are go with multi-VPC pattern and multi-account. Why we need multi-VPC? Then why when we need to go for multi-account? Then that we will see in the upcoming slides. So multi-VPC pattern is best suited for single team or single organization such as managed service providers. And if your limited team, which makes it easier to maintain standards and manage access. Exceptions, governance and compliance standards may require greater workload isolation regardless of organizational complexity. You have to be very careful about the governance and compliance standards if you are using multi-VPC. Okay. Within the account, you can create one VPC also, you can create multi-VPC also, but depends upon your management, how you are going to manage the workloads. Some people, some company will create within one VPC, they will create multiple environment, development, test and prod. Some company will create a multi-VPC like for one VPC for development, one VPC for test, one VPC for prod, for the greater isolation. Within AWS account, here they have created multi-VPC. Each VPC represents some environment or some team or whatever it is, depends upon their requirement. Okay, this is how it will be. Multi-account pattern, that is multi-account pattern where we can use and which will be best suited for the large organization and organizations within multiple IT teams. Mostly it will be good for medium-sized organization also that anticipate rapid growth. Some medium-sized organization are expecting my company will grow in next 5 years like a big company, then you can go for the multi-account pattern. Why multi-account pattern is good or not good? Because managing access and standards can be more challenging in the multi-account pattern because in the more complex organization. So that's where they will be go with a multi-account pattern. See, one account will have one VPCs. This is also a possible. It depends upon the requirement and need of the organizations, how they wanted to be. Again, each account will have different billing and different things altogether. Okay, service limit 5 VPCs per region. Okay, I was correct. So you can have multiple VPCs in the same region or in different region, but your limit is 5 VPCs per region per account. Okay, per account, per region. One account in one region you can create 5 VPC. In one account in second region you can create another 5 VPC. Okay, keep it in mind very carefully. You can create 5 VPCs. That 5 VPCs are limited only per region, per account. Within account you can create in multiple regions. In multiple regions you can create VPCs up to 5. That's the limitation. So what is VPC and IP addressing? Each VPC reserves a range of private IP addresses that you specify. Before we go into that, do you guys know what is private IP address, what is public IP addresses? I hope you guys all know what is IP addresses. I don't want to go into that, but I want to know what is private IP address and what is public IP address. Why we need these two types of IP addresses? Any answers?
In my opinion, public IP address is our general IP address, like it's available worldwide and anyone can identify me using that IP. And private IP is like on the local network. So if multiple devices are connected to a router, the router will assign private IP addresses. So it's for a small network basically.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. So in very simple term, private IP address will not be exposed to public internet. Public IP address will be exposed to the external world, that is public and internet. You can access over the internet. Private IP address only access within the network, not over the internet. Public IP address can be accessed over the internet from anywhere in the world. Very simple. So private IP, whenever you create VPCs, each VPC is having the range of private IP addresses. That IP address range also you have to specify. So those private IP addresses can be used by resources deployed into that VPC. Basically, the IP range will be defined using CIDR notation. People always used to tell the network team and all CIDR notation. CIDR means classless inter-domain routing. So what is CIDR notation? What is IP address range, subnetting and all? You have to learn on your own. This is part of networking, pure networking, CCNE and all. You can Google it out and you can find out, but I am not going into deep into this. Is a very vast topic. I am not going into that. Okay. So for example, if you can, if you provide some CIDR notation 10.0.0.0/16, that means this is the CIDR notation. In this IP address range, these many IPs are included. That means the IP is from 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.0.255.2. These many IP addresses are associated with this /16 CIDR notation. Like this, you have to create a subnet. We'll see what is subnet and all. So this is the example, CIDR example. If you see, whenever you create VPC, you have to give the CIDR IP address ranges. If you give 0.0.0.0/0, that means all the IPs can be used within the VPC. If you can give anything, not 10.22.23, you can start with anything 192.168.1.1/32, 192.168 or 172, whatever number you can provide, because these are all private. Okay, it's up to you. If you see right side of the table, if you /28, if you give 16 IPs will be associated with that IP ranges. Like that, it keep on decreasing. Whenever you decrease the number of CIDR notation, it will increase the total IPs associated with that IP address range. There are so many IP calculators are there in the Google. Before and all, you have to calculate this manually. It is very tedious job. But now Google is come up with a lot of third-party tools are there. If you go and check and type IP address calculator, IP subnet calculator, there are a lot of calculators are coming into the world tool. You can just go and type your IP address and give some notation, CIDR notation. It will give you, okay, these are all the IP address ranges, and you can start using it. Okay. Using subnet to divide your VPC. Okay. Subnet. What is subnet? Subnet is nothing but a subset of your network. It's a segment or partition of a VPC's IP address range where you can isolate a group of resources. So before we have seen, right, CIDR notation, we have to come up with some /16 or /18, 20 something. That means you will get some number of IPs. For example, if you take this /28, you will get 16 IPs. That means you can create 16 hosts or 16 resources you can create. After 16, if you create 17 resources, your IPs will be exhausted. You have to create another VPC. So that's why AWS always recommends don't go for very less number of IPs and large number also. Don't waste so many IPs also. Don't be exhaust also. Okay, use /20 or /19. Definitely no companies will use 4,000 servers, right? So it's very tough. In one VPC, if you want, you can create another VPC. So if you are going with a subnet, you can divide the IP address into 4, or you can create 2 or 3 also. For example, if /22, it has 1024 IPs. You can 251, 251, 251. Actually, there is an animation in that. This is not working. So it is 251 only. Subnet 1 251, subnet 2 251, subnet 3 251, subnet 4 251. So each subnet we are segregating with a 251 IP address. If you add all these things, it becomes 1024. So why we are segregating this subnet? Why we are dividing this subnet? You can you can manage these IP addresses, or you can manage the servers which are belong to the subnet. It is very easy for you to handle it. For example, if you are creating, if you are having in your company, there is a team called HR team, finance team, housing team, something. So each team you can, whoever from HR team, they belongs to this subnet one. If finance team, whoever wants to create, they belongs to subnet 2. You can create it. So if any issues comes, you can just go to that particular subnet and you can go and troubleshoot it. It is very easy for you to manage and handle as well.